So, what are the Oblen, and what are they based on? Physically, they're just they're rocky humanoids because they're grown out of waystone, which is a sort of granite-like crystal, right?
Yeah, and there's waystone buried under the ground throughout the earth, and it's the idea is that it maintains the order of the earth. At least that's what the Oblens say. And so it's there's these waystones throughout the world buried underground that maintain the earth's order. And when the chasm first opened, the rift into the
primordial plane,
primordial chaos down at the bottom of it, that was when the first waystones came to life and became the Oblen.
Oh, okay. I was gonna ask. Starting it all.
Yeah.
The waystones came to life and became Oblen.
Yeah.
And their goal is to maintain order, but primarily by closing the rift. Yeah. That's their goal. Close the rift.
The waystones grow out of the edges of the rift, right? They're trying to seal it up. It's essentially almost a scab that's forming.
And the Oblens seem to be part of the process of trying to grow it in various ways, and perhaps vice versa. The waystones are trying to close the rift. The Oblen are sort of sentient waystones in a way.
I imagine what happens is, and I mean Tim would know more because he invented all this, but what happens is the chaos beasts from below come up out of the rift and they attack the waystones that are trying to grow over time. They're smashing the crystals. And so that's primarily what the fight is all about. The Oblen are trying to fight them off so they can't, wreck the waystones in their attempt to seal the rift. That's just my impression of it all.
Well, yeah, and also the Oblen feel a duty to protect the world from what comes out of the rift.
Yeah.
So they're both trying to close it and trying to protect the world from what comes out of it.
Yeah.
And they're one of the oldest races. In world building, they were created very early on. The only reason they're not the first is because we had turns. Tim's turn wasn't first. So they're one of the and in that time of history, everything is very hazy. So the Oblen are they've been there since the beginning essentially.
Actually, I wrote a post on the world building subreddit. The question came up: what are who are the history keepers in your world? Who has the historical records from the olden times? And I mentioned that, the two oldest civilizations in our setting are the two who are least suited to having a good history. It's very sad. It was the Empire of Flowers and the Oblen.
Which is a bizarre name.
And I figured the reason that the Empire of Flowers is a bad choice for being historical record keepers is because no one trusts their histories.
Yeah.
And probably with some cause, because they have a lot of internal strife and Byzantine politics and stuff like that, so probably they get rewritten a bit. But the reason the Oblen were an unfortunate choice for being the historical record keepers is almost the entirety, they keep meticulous records about history, but it's all about the rift and how big it is and how, what its dimensions are and what their efforts to close it are. And I made up a little example that the entirety of their record of the 11th devastation of Allenway is
11th?
Observed a mass of a giant mass of electrified magma hurtling through the sky. Trajectory was determined to not have originated from the rift. Full stop. So that's their record of that particular event, and that seems likely to me to be the sort of thing. They have all these records, but their focus is entirely on the rift, so most people really don't care about what the details are.
Well, within your world building, did someone actually cause that event?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, Allenway.
I don't know if it was the 11th. I lost track of the numbers, but
Allenway has been destroyed many times. That's
it became a running gag almost.
Yeah. Although, but it was part of Ferret's intention too, is that he was he's like, because normally you can't mess with other people's stuff unless you buy influence into it, and you generally ask permission or whatever, right, before you wreck someone's city. But he was like, yeah, anyone has permission to do stuff with my elven civilization as long as it's bad, and you can get like a -1 off the cost. So like doing bad stuff to the elves was cheap and encouraged by their creator. So
interesting way to build a world.
But yeah, Allenway has been destroyed many times.
It's the chew toy of history.
Yeah.
Basically, the interesting thing about Allenway is every time it gets destroyed, the elves rebuild it, and they ward it against whatever it was that destroyed it the last time. So it's a really super heavily protected city now, but always against things that have already destroyed it.
Yeah, something always comes up, like the 11th destruction of Allenway. They actually had warded it against magma because it had been magma'd, and they had warded it against a huge lightning strike because that had happened to it. But it wasn't warded against electrified magma, which is what happened.
Yep.
It got hit by a giant blob of electrified magma that shot out of the mega volcano that's like down to the south, and just went straight and landed, bam, right on Allenway.
Yep.
And it couldn't withstand that. So,
Yep.
yeah. But
Wow. And you said goblin?
Goblin.
yeah,
Goblin is the plural for goblin.
yeah, it's not with an I, it's with an E, because it's Oblen is Oblen, so goblin is, and it's pluralized to oblins. It doesn't pluralize, right?
I always misspell that.
But goblin is same, Goblen, and plural is goblin. And they were
They were sort of twisted and degenerate Oblen.
yeah, some chaos. I think it was actually some it was like some chaos, like sprites and fairies and whatnot, because there's those exist in the rift too. They came up from the rift and they corrupted a whole chunk of Oblen, like a whole area, like a little town or whatever. They don't exactly have towns, but like a settlement of Oblen, and it corrupted them into goblin, and they shrunk down, and they're made of stone like the Oblen, but they behave like standard D&D goblins, right? Like they're like and they're
John has to do that voice.
Yeah, I noticed.
Campaigns. He
and
loves doing that.
but yeah,
Retelling,
No.
there's an opportunity.
I don't know. That's more of a rip roar voice. I have to try
Was
to
he
differentiate
a
them.
No.
Rip roar is unknown.
He's
He
probably a
speaks,
sprite of some kind.
he speaks sprite, so that's the language of the chaos spirits, like the sprites and the fairies and whatnot. And it's interesting. So the goblin are these degenerate Oblen, and they've spread in a goblin-like fashion to be kind of like, they're everywhere now, and especially around the rift. But like they're a problem. And of course the Oblen see it as a terrible curse. That's why Croesus, when they encountered a goblin, was like, I can kill you, because he sees it as like their very existence is cursed, that they exist. They're cursed Oblen. They become goblin, and so
They must wish for death, obviously.
Clearly.
yeah.
And
And-
so he kindly was offering it to them.
Mm. And interestingly, the goblin and the sprites that created them don't get along.
Well, they're chaos beasts. I mean,
Well, but it was spelled out in world building, and I thought a bit more about this because I had to deal with it. They specifically really hate each other, and it's because the chaos beasts, not the chaos beasts, but the sprites. The sprites are more like pranksters. They like to play jokes on people and mess with them, kind of like Rip Roar. They love.
yeah, those are hilarious jokes.
But versus the goblins, and they see the goblins as kind of like creepily evil, like they're just too evil, versus the goblins think the sprites aren't evil enough. They're like, what's the point of tricking people? You should just kill them.
Yeah.
The analogy I think of is a sprite would sneak into your house and take your baby and hide it in the attic to mess with you, but a goblin would be just murder your baby and be like, ha ha ha. That's the difference between them, right?
Got your baby.
One would just
horrible.
One would just kill your baby. The other one would play a trick on you, and that's why they hate each other,
And-
because
Yeah, of course, but by a trick, it's still a pretty awful thing.
It's still awful. It's just that they you know, if a sprite, you know, saw a goblin just killing a baby, they'd be like, dude, that's messed up.
Yeah,
like,
you don't get it. You should you should screw around with them. You shouldn't just kill the baby.
Yeah,
You had a golden opportunity there.
Yeah, so they're both very chaotic, and they're both kind of evil, but the goblin are more evil.
Is a goblin?
No,
He's an
Oblen.
Okay, but he's cursed.
No.
Or something.
Well, he's a little bit damaged.
We don't
so
exactly
they
fully
think
know
he's
why.
a turning goblin.
He's revealed.
Well, this is the hobgoblin thing now. Goblin are not actually like Oblen that got turned into goblin. Well, I mean the originals maybe.
But these ones are like their descendants.
They're
now.
descendants, you know. So goblin have goblin quote unquote parents. I assume they reproduce in the same way the goblin do. They take waystones and sort of.
I'm not sure. It hasn't really been determined. I guess I wasn't really exactly imagining that, but I guess they must do something like that. Maybe they like chaos corrupt them or something.
They corrupt waystones directly into goblin. But hobgoblins are, from what I've learned in the past couple sessions anyway, they weren't in world building. They are Oblen that get corrupted in some way, and they become all twisted. So John can do that voice some more.
Yeah, I mean, they basically just encountered them. They're not a known thing from the past. They're just this rumor.
Yeah. Well, didn't Hank know about them? Because he's...
No. Well, not really.
I mean, know of them.
Maybe.
The
rumors were
guard.
the rumors had just started actually in the last few months.
Oh, okay.
It probably was right around the time that he left that they were, so he probably would have heard of them.
All right. I wasn't aware that it was such a brand new thing.
Yeah, it's like a brand new thing that there's like these.
a lesser known thing.
Because no one's like, even the guards don't believe it, right? Like they're like, yeah, we heard there's rumors that there's like these evil Oblen that people are calling hobgoblin in the sewers, but that just sounds dumb. You know, so like it's sort of a rumor at this point.
In that case, there might be some plot point here rather than just hobgoblins. Yeah, there's something going on in the sewers. Why is it always in the sewers? Anyway.
It's just D&D.
There should be a monster lurking in the water treatment plant that produces clean water. And you go in there and there's all these pipes full of pure water.
I didn't make you go into the sewers last campaign.
You have to wade knee deep through pure water.
Oh. I'm cleaner.
Jokes on the people of the city. This is all going into their taps.
Going into their taps.
Yeah. The Pan-Oblen.
Yeah. Which we just didn't discuss last time.
Yeah. They're an offshoot of the Oblen from long, long ago.
And they became obsessed with not just following the law in the sense of, you know, doing what's right or whatever, but with natural law.
Yes.
So they basically became like uber scientists in a way. They became I sort of see them as, they're like scientists, but they're sort of like almost an intensity and like fervor. You know, they're like, it's important to discover why this is like this. Like you know, if you're sitting at home not discovering why, you're a bad person, kind of a thing.
There's something about Oblen. As a race, they have OCD just built right into them. And the thing that they obsess about varies, but...
Yeah.
So what are the goblins obsessed with?
I don't know. Being evil. Maybe that's why they hate the sprites. Because the sprites aren't evil enough.
Aha! There we go.
But
yeah.
I mean, and there isn't that much to it other than the fact that, you know, then the Pan-Oblen kind of left because they didn't care. They didn't see that closing the chasm was the most important thing.
They stopped living along the edges of the chasm.
Yeah, and the Oblen,
the Grey Wall,
and the Oblen called them deserters, and they just sort of their name says it all. The Pan-Oblen. They think of themselves as they've risen to a higher plane. You know, they figured out the true. Yeah,
they've gone beyond the rift.
Yeah, exactly. And and so they advanced super quickly, became one of the big magical civs, and
they only had a few cities though. They never really expanded much in terms of population and territory.
It's because they didn't have much time. Because they they went from nothing to on par with the Ood and the Untqua in like a very short amount of time, and then they got wiped out in the same magical apocalypse that wiped them all out.
If only they delayed just a little bit.
Yeah, and so, yep, they all died.